Hey guys, what's going on? I just wanted to do some potential TA here on CGC. I plan to do a few videos if I can get some out today. Um, but I want to start with CGC. So, I made a video on CGC a long time ago. Unfortunately, I wasn't that much, I wasn't as good as I am now. And because of that, I lost myself out on a lot of profit taking. So for me, I was entered at 1650, and my idea of me just being new to it and trying to see something and not playing by confirmations and just guesstimating a pattern type of deal. I was looking at this like a left shoulder, a head, and I was expecting a right shoulder to come down and then take off. And with CGC, obviously cannabis was hot at the time, and instead we kind of made either a cup and handle here, or either way, or this turned into an inverse head and shoulders this way. A bit needless to say, I started closing my position up in this $30 range. So it was still a nice trade, but this back test, I was looking for it to come a lot lower, possibly down to this range here of this $20 range, and I didn't catch that this was just a small falling wedge correction or whatever. And looking at it now, I can see how I screwed up. And this thing blasted off all the way up to 60 bucks. And then we ended up pretty much, if we were to look at it like this, obviously we could come up into this range and draw a line from here and show how perfectly that worked out. But basically, we had this box range up in this area. Now, the cool thing about CGC, which is very very clear during this upswing here, is that CGC doesn't have much resistance in this range. Now that's also a downside, because as you see here, we had this huge downswing. It was very very fast. We had a little support, and then we just a little continuation, and then down. So now, due to that, it allowed us to have this very very massive downswing. Now, we did the same potential scenario that we did here. We did here. Kind of looks like the trend is reversing, and then it falls on its face. More of like a continuation pattern, right? So like a rising wedge or something. Now this one wasn't as clear, but it just rolled over. So I've been waiting for this, and if you saw it when you first started this video, I've been kind of looking at this potential scenario here that chops around and ends up turning into a massive double bottom. Of course, it's just speculation. There's no way for sure to say if that's going to be the case. However, the area that we're in is starting to get pretty beautiful. Now, of course, we had all of this consolidation. We had some wicks here, of course. We had a couple wicks here in this range, which could still play out. If you're not familiar with technical analysis, it's usually based off of previous price action and how the price reacted, and then traders usually trade off of the same levels. So we could make a case that this wick here, which, let's see, this wick right here, we drew that all the way across, and that could land as some decent support right here, and it did prior, right in this range, and it's probably going to act as support in this range. Now we could get a fake wick again, and it could look a lot similar to what happened here, but it's hard to really base it off of that. But if we wanted to do that, of course you can always expect it if you want to get the absolute bottom, and we could just say, hey, there was a nice wick down in this range, which I'm going to go off of that consolidation, not the exact wick bottom there, and just say, once we start getting into this range, and we're getting very close, this is a buying opportunity like you'll never see before. Now, I'm not even saying we have to chop around in here, because we don't. We can literally come down a few more dollars here and double bottom here and start a new trend. You can see the weekly RSI is getting down into these key zones here. In the past, we had wicks down into this 2330 strength, and guess what happened? We took off here, we ripped. We took off here after a few bounces, which took probably a couple weeks. This range right here was from roughly I don't have my like price range range tool here set up anymore, but from March 23rd to a double bottom on September. So, about 5-month range there, and yes, I just had to use my fingers to count there, so it's kind of funny. So this price range, anyway, is roughly landing somewhere between 1372 and 1463. So for me, the price range that I am okay with buying some in this $16 range because I had an average of that last time, and I wouldn't mind buying in that range. So for me, I would definitely start nibbling anywhere here from this $16 and as low as obviously I don't really think it would go down to $8, but it could. It definitely could. But really, from 14 to 16 is really the range that we want to keep our eyes on because we're starting to get into that same location, and this thing can definitely start to look like a double bottom, whether it ends up in this range, whether it does something like that, or if it holds above here. Now, I'm not saying it's going to touch it and just completely rip. I'm expecting some type of sideways consolidation, but for long-term holders and stuff like that, this looks like a very, very, very interesting range for me, and I will be definitely looking at that. Now, as far as playing momentum, if you wanted to wait until later to get in and you don't trust it right now, you don't care to buy in the lows, you could look at something like this. And this is just basically me charting without any indicators or anything, but we can look at it like this. If you break above, we could break above, we can go as slow as it back testing this 2450, or we can get into a real fast trade, which looks like anywhere above this $30 range. But as far as buying low and selling high, we're starting to get in this critical range here that I am really interested in going long. Big swing trade, really. And like I said, what do swing traders do? Now, they try to get a pretty low price. They try to get the best deals that they can, but they're okay with it coming a little bit lower and then averaging down and continuing to add to their position anywhere in a key zone. So right now, where we're looking at here is we're looking at the start of something potentially beautiful because, we're just still on this free fall. We haven't had any type of reversal signals yet. This is on a weekly chart, and you can see that it still has some time to potentially do something. Now, I've seen these type of things happen where we just get some big buyer that comes in and the thing starts ripping. I can't call that that's going to happen. I can look at indicators and see if we see anything like that showing up. But like I said, this is just strictly off the daily chart. So, enough rambling here. Looking at a daily, if we were to pull this price range calculator, well, it's my price range, but I edited it to work for me. If we pulled this across right here, and it's a little bit thick, so I kind of want to actually, make it a little bit more narrow. If we look here, this area here is and could be a very, very strong support. We had support here, we had support on this whole chop before we eventually ripped to the upside. And then where are we now? We just had our first touch here on this level, which is roughly, if we want to obviously I'm not perfect, so I can actually make this a little more perfect. If we go off of those wicks in the past, right down here, this graph, I make my line a little bit thicker because I want to cover some area. That way I don't miss it by a penny or something. But if we were to zoom in, which I have it somewhere doubled, there we go. Let's put it right on that wick just to see if there's any confluence here. So there's some wicks here that pretty much chopped around. Really, your price action to me would be 1596. That would be the start of it all. Would be right here, looking at all of this price action, right? So all these extra wicks below, to me, it's just buying opportunities, guys. So it's not financial advice. It's just what I would do. So now, if we were to take a fib retracement here from this swing low and bring it all the way up here to this swing high, we can see if there's anything showing us anything good. So Obviously, our .786 was at 1901, and we're way down here would be 875, which is that same low there. Let's look at a weekly because we can even draw this out to the bottom of this whole move here to the top of that and see if there's anything. We have 1304 as a .786, basing it off of that. But personally, I like to go off of the swing lows of the move here. We could even call it that, which would roughly, it's hard to know on something that was starting from this, this low of price action here, where it just started a parabolic upswing there. It's hard to say, like, do you put your fib retracements here? Do you put your fib retracements here? So that's the thing, and doing that is obviously going to be key when it comes to what are the other traders looking at, and that's what comes so handy about fibs. Now, looking at it like this, with the swing of this low here at 483, and bringing that right there up to the swing high here of roughly 56, which we could, maybe bring it up to this 59, but I'm going to go off of that recent area. We're roughly right at this .786. .786 fib is a very, very key area to buy, like 100%, like a key area. And I can show you many reasons, just based off of, that's what buyers like to do. They like to buy around these, right in between the .618 and the .786. It's a beautiful, beautiful buying range. So that's where we're at right now, and this is where you want to start really averaging into this thing. And, you want to, obviously you don't want to sell your house and go in on it, because this is going to be a longer term investment here, because cannabis industry is still a little bit behind, but we're starting to get some good growth. So I know this video is turning out to be a long video. This is how my videos end up being. I talk a lot about different things. I don't do too much news or anything, but this is what happened last time. We created, and at the time when I bought this, I was just coming into the markets. I didn't know anything about TA. I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. And, basically I just saw that, hey, Snoop Dogg is starting to own this business. That was one of the things that I saw. If we base it off of news, that was one of the things that I saw. And I went, wow, weed, Snoop Dogg, buy the shit out of this thing. And then, whether I got lucky or if it was just, everybody was thinking the same thing around the same time that this news was coming out, this was when I bought it. And, like I said, I was not a professional trader at the time. I'm not even saying I'm a professional now. I'm still a learner. But we have very strong resistance down at this $14 range, and we have some very strong noticeable resistance somewhere between this $15.50 and this $16 range. So this is the areas that I am going to start buying, and I haven't started buying yet, but I am looking to start buying. Like I said, this thing could continue lower, but any drops below, I can't stress it enough how this is videos, I always do these videos talking to myself, and if you're listening and you want to take these plays with me, that's completely up to you. Whenever I talk on videos, I'm talking to myself. So anyway, let's pull up some indicators, and then I can let you guys go. If you've still made it this far, that's great. So, to start out, let's just use one indicator at a time so we don't overcrowd this chart. Now we can see here that we have gotten all of our moving averages on the weekly time frame have crossed. We have one more cross that's really coming in now, which is the 20 going down over the 100. So obviously these things are so lagging because, if you were waiting for this potential cross here, this cross is happening now, and we could be potentially hitting a bottom here. So, that's just something to keep in mind, that when you're playing these things, you don't really want to sell when these things start to cross, because it's lagging. You had been here instead of up here, which is why there's certain indicators here that we can use to find ourselves, give ourselves the best edge of a top and a bottom. Now, obviously, by the time this started happening, we had these moving averages starting to roll up and converge on themselves, where we're pretty far away from them right now. Now, of course, we could get a spike up here. It could be a fake, and then we could just continue lower. But that's something always to keep in mind as well, because that can be a swing position trade too if we got rejected really harshly here at the 21 EMA, depending on how high it was to go here. It looks like there's some pretty good consolidation in this, 1988 level, which would be pretty strong resistance if we were going to really break this chart down. So, looking at the moving averages, we can see that we're still riding below the daily 20 EMA. EMA. We just got another rejection here from it, and we can almost make the case just looking off of the daily that this here was some type of smaller, symmetrical triangle. And if that was the case, then we could try to get a downside target based off of the measurement of the widest point of this wedge, which as of right now would bring us to a target of 1539. So this is still in bearish territory right now. Looks like we hit a target of 1579. Now it's possible the buyers just came in and just starting wanting to eat this up. Now we could be working our way down to this low here of 1381, and that's going to be a key area that I am going to set some buy orders probably around 1390, and I'll take a nice bid on that. And then I'll also be looking at some of these other previous wicks here, the 1561s and all that, just to start averaging in. Obviously it doesn't look good yet, or we don't really need to look at. Personally, I don't even care to look at those smaller time frames right now, because I'm not interested in what is it going to do in the next 2 days. I'm more interested in what is it going to do in, let's see, how long did this take from this drop here, just starting from this initial rising wedge relief rally here at 2840. This was on September, we'll just say September, and we didn't get a rip. Well, that was actually September 2019, and roughly it took a year until we finally got another rip. So that was the price action there. So that being said, we're talking, if this right now is June 7th, then we would be talking potentially, based off of a time-based correction, we could be talking about a consolidation up until roughly June before we could have another break to the upside. So, we don't know how that's going to play out. Obviously, you can't say that it's going to happen the exact ways, because things don't usually happen that way. But just to show what this could look like if it was to happen the same way here, is if we were to get a bounce somewhere up in this range, and then a rejection, and then we start chopping again before a rip to the upside, then we would look at like something like that, which would end somewhere between May and June. That's actually almost perfectly identical, and nothing ever is like that. So, obviously, this is just complete speculation right here. But that's like something that could happen. Roughly, not the same exact price action, but we could be looking at something like that. So that's just the whole point of this, is that I'm not talking about buying this thing right now because it looks like it's going to shoot up in the next week. So anyway, those are the EMAs, which are still very, very bearish. We have an EMA ribbon. It just flipped bearish not too long ago. This was roughly, let's see, in the 7th of February 2020, we flipped bearish on the EMA ribbon. And actually the opposite, didn't we? We flipped from red to green, so that doesn't really help us too much. But when we finally closed above the EMA ribbon was on October. So roughly 8 months from here to here was when we had our blast off. We still haven't flipped green yet, so we probably want to wait until this thing flips green. This could push us down lower. There's no way to say. Anyway, the point is this is getting in some potential buying zones here. So, I'm looking to buy some at this level of roughly $14, and I'm looking to potentially buy some right where we are, depending on how price action goes over the next, week or two. So, let's see if we can show anything else just to give us a little bit of a longer term, resistance look. We can see the power of this Ichimoku Cloud. If you're not familiar, definitely look into it. I recently changed my settings on it a little bit, which if you're interested in that, let me know. We can see the power of it though. When we were flipping above it, we were using it as support. It's hard to see because there's so many squiggles, but the main things that I like to look at here is this red here, this very thick red line right here, and then this very thick green area here. So this is a perfect example. I'm interested in this support, potentially resistance, and I'm interested in this cloud. When you lose this area, you drop. Very noticeable there. When this red area is above, it's a lot of resistance. When you start getting back into the cloud and you hold it, it's bullish. However, you back test here, you get a very big pump, but then you get rejected, roughly still below all this resistance, and you're in this cloud, you're in this ribbon now too. We have the ribbon and the Ichimoku Cloud. We got rejected, we fell through, you short it, comes all the way back down, you get rejected again, right here, in the cloud, you fall back down, you come in, you blast through it, you come down, you back test it, you're under it, you're under it, you're under it. See how perfect it is? You're under it, you can't hold it, can't hold it. You're under it, you fall lower, and then what happens? You get above, this is the cloud and the ribbon, you're back testing it. It looks like a small head and shoulders. People are probably thinking it's, but in reality, you actually back tested it, and guess what happens? You continue up higher and higher. Then you hit a blow off top. You come down, you back test this ribbon, you go up, you ride this cloud, and then you fall through, and then you lose that resistance. And you see what happens? We're all the way under it. Now it's resistance. We're pretty far from it right now, so that just shows that there's a lot more time before we can start getting ourselves in there, unless we just had a random pump here above $30, which is not likely. So that's all off the daily. Obviously, you can see on the weekly, there is not much resistance on a weekly time frame up to $32. Hence why these things end up having a very, very big jump when they do have one. Daily could be a little slower before you finally start getting yourself in the cloud, retest it, run. So, with all of that being said, like I said, this is going to be something that could take some time, but it's getting into the zones of the buying. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this was helpful. I'm not going to get into any other indicators here. If you want me to do more videos on CGC, let me know. Not going to be too much to do videos on except for the same price action we're seeing. But from here on out, you know what I'll be doing. I'll be loading up. Peace.